Welcome back to our favorite curious mind. So, I want you to imagine a scenario for a second. You log into your company's workspace tomorrow morning.
Right, just a normal Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. You open up your team chat, you check the roster, and, well, you realize something completely surreal has happened overnight.
Oh boy.
You suddenly have, like, 3 times as many digital artificial coworkers as human ones.
Wow.
And they
Yeah.
have names, they have assigned operational tasks, they're pinging you with status updates, and they never, ever log off.
It is just a completely jarring visual,
Mhm.
right? I mean, you log in expecting the usual morning stand-up, and instead you're looking at this totally alien organizational structure.
Yeah, but here's the thing. For a growing number of people, this is not, some hypothetical scenario about the distant future. It's just the new reality of Tuesday morning.
Exactly. It's happening right now.
And that brings us to the actual mission of today's deep dive. We are cutting straight through the science fiction hype.
And there is a lot of hype.
Oh, so much hype. But we're looking at a massive real-time shift happening in the modern workplace right now. We're asking, I think, a really critical question.
Right.
Are we witnessing the end of traditional knowledge work or the birth of something entirely new?
It's a massive question.
It is. And to answer it, we've been poring over this wild stack of late May 2026 business and tech reports. We've got pieces from Fortune and TechCrunch mixed in with some really sobering hard data from KPMG, Gartner, McKinsey, and Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, the heavy hitters.
Right. And we're pairing all of that with direct company announcements so we can ground this entirely in what is actually happening.
And, the inciting incident for all of this data, the thing that really kicked this off, is a massive move by ClickUp.
Oh, yeah. The ClickUp story is wild.
It really is. So in May 2026, ClickUp, which is, a major productivity software company valued around $4 billion, they made an announcement that just sent shockwaves through the industry.
They fired 22% of their workforce, right?
Right, 22%. That is about 290 people out of 1,300. But they didn't just leave those desks empty to save on payroll.
No, they definitely did not.
They immediately deployed approximately 3,000 internal AI agents to take over and really expand upon the workflows of the departed staff.
They practically inverted their organizational chart overnight. I mean, going from human-led to agent-led.
Exactly.
And we're going to dive into this with rigor, a bit of humor, and honestly, zero cheap sensationalism. We want to know what this actually means for you, for the future of how we all work.
Because ClickUp didn't just wake up one morning in May and, push a giant red button.
Right, this wasn't an impulse decision.
Got it all. According to their announcements, they actually began integrating these super agents back in January 2026. They wove them into engineering, marketing, customer support.
Code review, too, I think.
Yeah, code review, and even executive operations. The timeline reveals this was a highly calculated restructuring.
Yeah, and the CEO, Zeb Evans, stated publicly that the company is actually financially stronger than ever. So the 22% reduction wasn't a desperate attempt to avoid bankruptcy.
Right, they weren't trimming a bloated budget. Evans framed it as a deliberate, strategic move to create what he calls an AI-native 100x org.
Okay, I have to stop on that phrase, 100x org. Because it sounds like just peak corporate jargon.
Oh, absolutely.
What does a 100 times multiplier actually look like mechanically? I mean, it's not just someone typing 100 times faster.
No. The multiplier comes from asynchronous parallel processing. At ClickUp, the ratio is now 3 AI agents to every 1 human employee.
3 to 1.
Yeah, 3 to 1. So the fundamental nature of the human's job has changed. You go from executing tasks sequentially, one after another, to managing multiple agents operating simultaneously.
Wow.
Let's look at the mechanics of these super agents. We aren't talking about standard chatbots here, where you type a prompt and it spits out a paragraph.
Right, like standard ChatGPT stuff.
Exactly. These are autonomous entities with memory, and they have tool access.
So they aren't just sitting in a chat window waiting for instructions.
No, they are given a high-level goal, and they break it down into a decision tree all by themselves.
Okay, give me an example of how that actually works.
Sure. An agent might be told to resolve a customer ticket. So it queries the company's Jira database, pulls up the user's history in Salesforce, drafts a patch in the code base, runs a test on that patch.
All on its own.
All on its own. And if it sees the test fail, it rewrites the code, passes the test, and then drafts an email to the customer.
That's insane.
The human only steps in at the very end to review the entire chain of events and approve it.
It feels like they just fired all the oarsmen on a giant galley ship, bolted a massive experimental engine to the back, kept a few navigators, and, well, slapped $1 million bounty on the desk for whoever figures out how to steer it fastest without crashing.
That is a great analogy.
And I say $1 million because ClickUp actually introduced new salary bands, right?
They did, yeah. They are offering up to $1 million for the employees who best multiply their productivity using this new AI structure.
Up to $1 million? The financial incentive is just staggering.
It is, and it's designed to force a radical shift in human behavior. They are essentially putting a massive bounty on cognitive orchestration.
Right, moving from oarsman to navigator.
Exactly. The transition requires a completely different mental muscle.
But, okay, I have to push back on the corporate narrative here for a second. ClickUp literally sells productivity tools. That is their entire business model.
Yes, they do.
Isn't deploying 3,000 AI agents just the ultimate, maybe slightly ruthless marketing stunt? I mean, it's a massive proof of concept for their own industry, but it comes at the very real expense of 290 human jobs.
Well, the marketing aspect is undeniable. I mean, when a productivity company uses its own cutting-edge tech to radically reshape its workforce, it sends a really loud signal to its enterprise customers.
Right, a signal that says, hey, this technology works at scale.
Exactly. But looking past the PR, it does represent a real mechanical leap from traditional automation to what we call cognitive automation.
Okay, break that down for me. Traditional versus cognitive.
So traditional automation like robotic process automation, or RPA, is mindless. It replaces manual, repetitive clicks, like moving a number from a spreadsheet to a database.
Right, it's just following a script.
Exactly. But cognitive automation replaces the execution of complex, multi-step workflows.
So traditional automation is just a macro running in the background. It carries the bricks. But cognitive automation looks at the blueprint, figures out where the load-bearing walls go, and builds the structure itself.
That is exactly the dividing line. It changes the human role from being the doer of the work to being the orchestrator of the work. You are managing a team of digital workers who are building the walls, and your job is to make sure the building complies with code and, doesn't collapse.
Right. But ClickUp doing this in a Silicon Valley vacuum is one thing. If this orchestrator model is actually the future, we need to know if it works on Main Street.
Oh, for sure.
It's one thing for a $4 billion SaaS company to pull this off. It's another thing entirely for, say, a logistics firm in Ohio or a regional healthcare provider.
Yeah, and the broader market data reveals a massive tension between the theoretical potential of this tech and the ground-level reality.
What are the numbers looking like?
Well, reports from McKinsey and Goldman Sachs estimate that between 20 to 40% of all knowledge work hours could be automated in the near future.
20 to 40%. That is essentially wiping out Tuesday and Wednesday from the standard work week.
Theoretically, yes.
Yeah.
But a Q1 2026 report from KPMG provides a pretty brutal reality check.
Let's hear it.
They found that currently only 9% of companies are actually orchestrating multiple agents in real complex workflows.
Wait, only 9%?
Just 9%. The interest from executives is astronomically high, but the actual execution is incredibly rare.
So a 9% success rate means there is a massive gap between what the tech can do in a shiny demo and what normal businesses are capable of implementing without just breaking their operations.
That implementation gap is exactly where the danger lies for companies trying to emulate ClickUp. Gartner recently reported a severe warning sign for the market.
Oh, the Gartner data. Yeah, this was wild.
80% of companies that are reducing their headcount to invest in AI are not seeing the financial return on investment they expected.
Wait, 80% are failing to see the ROI?
Yeah.
So they fire people, buy the software, and actually lose money or efficiency?
Basically. The Gartner data highlights that success correlates heavily with companies that reskill and reassign their talent, rather than just treating AI as a one-to-one replacement for a human worker.
Okay, that makes sense.
When a company simply fires a human and drops an AI agent into the exact same broken legacy process, they don't get a 100x organization. They just get automated chaos at a slightly lower payroll cost.
Which quickly evaporates when the mistakes start happening.
Exactly.
So let's bring this down to the daily experience of the people listening. If you survive these layoffs, your day-to-day changes instantly.
Absolutely.
Let's say I have a new AI teammate. It never sleeps, never asks for a raise, never takes a sick day, but, occasionally it hallucinates.
Right, the AI hallucination.
It confidently hands me a totally fabricated 50-page market report. If I have to sit there and spend 4 hours double-checking every single footnote and data point,
Which you have to do.
right, then the cognitive load of babysitting this AI feels far more exhausting than just researching and writing the report myself.
And there is actually a psychological term for the friction you're describing. It's called sustained vigilance fatigue.
Sustained vigilance fatigue.
Yeah. AI dramatically increases raw output, right?
Yeah.
Generating a 50-page report in seconds. But it massively taxes the executive function of the human supervisor.
Because you're constantly looking for the catch.
Exactly. The human brain is actually quite poor at sustained vigilance tasks. Just watching a highly competent system operate and waiting for a rare, unpredictable error.
It's like a TSA screener watching x-rays for 8 hours, or a security guard staring at a monitor. After a while, your brain just tunes out.
The fatigue sets in very quickly. We start blindly clicking approve because the system is right 99% of the time.
Right, you get complacent.
But finding a well-disguised hallucination hidden inside 50 pages of otherwise factual text is mentally draining. It is significantly harder to spot a lie than to write the truth from scratch.
Wow, yeah, hadn't thought about it that way.
And this is why AI errors become incredibly expensive. If the human reviewer is fatigued and allows a hallucinated legal precedent to slip into a final contract or a faulty piece of code into a live product.
The downstream cost of fixing that is astronomical.
Exactly.
So the AI saves you massive amounts of time on the initial drafting, but it heavily taxes your mental energy on the review phase.
Yeah.
And because supervising AI requires such an intense level of cognitive focus, the types of human jobs that are going to survive this transition are fundamentally changing.
The required skill set is shifting right beneath our feet. The sources point to a very clear dividing line in the new knowledge economy between what work is declining and what work will thrive.
Okay, let's break that down. What's on the decline?
Middle-tier execution roles are facing the steepest decline. This includes routine data analysis, Tier 1 customer support, basic content marketing, standard report generation.
Routine coding tasks, too, I imagine.
Exactly.
Basically, any job where the primary value you provide is taking a known input, applying a standard set of rules, and producing a predictable output.
Because an autonomous agent can run that loop 1,000 times faster for fractions of a penny.
Right. If the output can be perfectly defined by a rule set, it is vulnerable.
Highly vulnerable. Now, the roles that thrive in a 3-to-1 agent-to-human ratio are those requiring capabilities algorithms currently cannot replicate.
Like what?
We are talking about deep ethical and strategic judgment, original, divergent creativity, the complex coordination between multiple human stakeholders and multiple AI agents.
And honestly, someone still has to hold the bag.
Yes, the accountability factor.
You can't put an AI agent in jail for compliance fraud, and you can't fire an algorithm to appease an angry board of directors. A human still has to take ultimate legal and ethical responsibility for the final results. Accountability is uniquely human.
The responsibility factor is huge. And if we look at the historical context, studies from MIT, Oxford, and the World Economic Forum all point to a consistent pattern.
Technology always destroys specific jobs.
Right, it destroys execution-level jobs, but it consistently creates new categories of work built on top of that automation.
Do we have a good historical equivalent for this?
The classic example is the invention of the electronic spreadsheet in the late 70s. It completely destroyed the job of the human ledger clerk. You know, people whose entire career was just doing math on paper.
Right, the manual calculators.
But it birthed the entire modern fields of financial modeling, quantitative analysis, and complex forecasting.
So it feels like we are shifting from an era of personal productivity to, well, agentic productivity.
I like that phrasing.
It's the difference between practicing the flute for 10,000 hours to play your individual part perfectly and suddenly being shoved onto the conductor's podium and told to manage 30 different instruments simultaneously.
That is a perfect way to visualize it.
The company is telling you, you aren't blowing the horn anymore, you are setting the tempo. And the terrifying part is, if the symphony sounds terrible, it is entirely your fault.
The transition from individual contributor to orchestrator is exactly like stepping onto that podium. The execution of the individual notes is automated. The agents play the instruments.
Right.
But ensuring they are in harmony, setting the creative vision, and choosing the repertoire remain a purely human responsibility.
Which really explains why ClickUp is offering $1 million to the best conductors. I mean, finding someone who can play the flute well is relatively easy.
Sure.
But finding someone who can coordinate 3,000 digital musicians, review their output for errors without succumbing to vigilance fatigue, and keep the whole operation from descending into automated chaos, that is incredibly rare.
That rarity ties directly back to Gartner's finding about the 80% failure rate. Most companies are just firing their flute players to save money, dropping AI instruments on empty chairs and hoping the music will magically play itself.
But they aren't training anyone to conduct.
Exactly.
So look, if you are navigating this transition right now, the goal isn't to panic about the 22% who lost their jobs at ClickUp. It's to realize that developing these high-value skills is an urgent priority. You have to transition your skill set from pure execution to systems-level thinking.
Critical thinking, strategic leadership, and complex problem-solving are no longer just nice-to-have soft skills that you put at the bottom of a resume.
Right, they are the core requirements.
They're the core requirements of the new economy. As the cost of basic intelligence and task execution drops toward zero, the premium on human judgment skyrockets. You have to learn how to take your unique expertise and scale it by directing these agents.
Because competing against them on raw typing speed or output volume is just a losing battle.
It's completely a losing battle.
Which brings us to a massive, lingering question that really builds on everything we've talked about today. It's something that wasn't explicitly solved in the source material, but it's the logical next step of this entire paradigm shift.
Oh, the expertise gap. Yeah.
Right. We just talked about how valuable human judgment and expertise are when conducting this AI orchestra. But historically, humans only build that deep expertise through repetition.
The apprenticeship model of knowledge work. You learn by doing the basic tasks.
Right. We all spent our first few years in the workforce grinding out the basics. We wrote bad briefs, we built clunky spreadsheets, we analyzed raw data, and we made mistakes.
Lots of mistakes.
And that repetitive execution is how we learned the rhythm of the business. That's how we developed the judgment required to eventually become senior leaders. So if companies everywhere adopt this 3-to-1 AI to human ratio and human jobs transition entirely to high-level orchestration.
What happens to the entry-level worker?
Exactly. What happens to the 22-year-old?
It creates a structural vulnerability in the global talent pipeline. We risk creating a missing bottom rung on the career ladder.
If an AI agent is doing all the junior-level work, the drafting, the coding, the basic analysis, how does someone fresh out of college ever learn what good code or a good market report actually looks like?
They don't.
If they never have to wrestle with the raw materials, how do they develop the strategic judgment required to supervise an AI when they are 30? Going back to our analogy, if you've never played the flute, how can you ever learn to conduct the orchestra?
The risk is a future where we expect professionals to possess senior-level judgment without ever having done junior-level execution. The sandbox where young professionals used to play, make mistakes, and learn is being entirely automated.
Right.
Companies will have to figure out how to simulate that experience, or they will face a massive leadership deficit in a decade.
It's a profound dilemma that every leader and young professional needs to be wrestling with right now. And as you go back to your day, we really want you to mull that over. If your company gave you 3 AI agents to manage tomorrow, are you ready to step onto the podium and conduct?
It's a tough question.
And how are you making sure you continue to build real foundational expertise when the machines are eager to do all the heavy lifting for you? So next time you log into your workspace and see your team roster, just remember, the digital colleagues are already here.
They are definitely here.
The only question is whether you are going to try to compete with them on execution or lead them with judgment. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep learning, keep questioning, and we'll catch you next time.